Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back for another episode, and I'm doubly thrilled today because I have with me fellow Hill Country resident David Dale. David, first of all, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
David, could you tell us a little bit about your professional background up to the point where you wrote your book?
I was in the Air Force for 20 years, from 1984 to 2004. And then 1 week after retirement, I became a Southwest Airlines pilot, and I've been there for the last 21 years.
Southwest Airlines, for years, my father was a labor arbitrator, and he was assigned to the Southwest Pilots Union account.
Oh, yeah.
And so I used to be regaled with tales of labor arbitrations where it seemed like one of the key things about being a Southwest employee was to have fun.
Yes.
Was that true back then?
Yes, very much. Yeah, they had a great saying, hire for attitude and train for aptitude. So they knew that every pilot walking in the door knew how to fly an airplane, but they wanted to hire the people that had a great attitude, a teamwork attitude that would have fun doing their job.
What led you to write the book, Aviation Therapy?
I started off just writing a bunch of flying stories, just going through my logbook and just reliving some of the days of the previous 20 years. I had told my brother one of the stories about being in Mogadishu, and when I finished that story, he said he didn't even know I was over there. So that's when the light bulb went off that I needed to start writing these down. And then over time, it shifted from just flying stories to my entire career. I didn't really set out to write about myself. I didn't want the focus to be on me, but more and more of that came out. And then when I met a new editor, she asked a lot of wonderful questions about my family, and she helped it become a more well-rounded book, all encompassing of my career and my family's military family life.
How did aviation enter your life, and how old were you when it did?
Pre-teenage years, I would say. So my mom's brother, my Uncle Jack, was a TAC fighter pilot. He was an Air Force fighter pilot in Vietnam. And I still remember the summer that he brought home his flight suit and helmet, and my older brother put that on. And we used to go to air shows back in the 70s and watch the Thunderbirds and the Blue Angels. So then once I was about 15 years old, I joined Aviation Explorer Post, which even back then was a co-ed department of Boy Scouting, of scouting, and started flying at 16. So I just started pursuing my dream as a teenager.
Where'd you grow up?
Houston, Texas. Yeah.
And then did you go to the Air Force Academy, or did you go to another college?
I went to the University of Texas and used the ROTC program to get my commission. So I was there from 1980 to 84.
Well, hook 'em.
Yeah.
I was there 76 to 79.
Okay.
So a little before you. So tell us about, or I guess what I'd like to explore with you is, how did your Air Force career help shape your professional career in the private sector?
Yeah, the flight training, most definitely. You get a lot of various, you travel internationally, you see a lot of different circumstances in the Air Force, but also the leadership growth that led to increased confidence throughout the years. So I started off as a navigator, and then made my way, after 2 years, was selected for pilot training, and then worked my way up from co-pilot to aircraft commander, instructor and evaluator. Changed airplanes and was selected to fly at Andrews Air Force Base in their brand new G5s. So just was able to do a lot of interesting international travel. So walking in the door at Southwest, there was not much that I hadn't been exposed to before.
And then I'd like to turn to the book now, and I'm almost hesitant. It's like asking a father which of your children is your favorite. Do you have a favorite story or a favorite chapter, or is it just such an integral part of your life? You just love all of it.
Yeah, it is hard to pick one. Different chapters were special for different reasons. The first chapter I wrote was the Mogadishu story. So our crews were the ones that took the Army Rangers into Mogadishu that eventually became the subject of Black Hawk Down. So that was a very influential, important time of my career. I was also in Desert Storm and one of the first KC-10s to be airborne on the first night of that operation. So just all of that we went through in the desert setting, international setting, and living in a tent city, It was just, but at the same time, we were a bunch of young guys. We were and ladies as well. We were just in our 20s and 30s and just carrying out the mission. So Mogadishu was great. From an introspective point of view, the one where I really opened up was a chapter called "Don't Get Cocky." And so when I went into writing the book, it's like, well, how much do I divulge about mistakes that pilots make? And so I just decided to open up and talk about a time that I got a little bit too complacent or too cocky on a check ride and ended up failing the check ride. So, but in that, I also talk about how fulfilling aviation is and how it really, if you went right down Maslow's hierarchy of needs, all of those needs were, to me, were fulfilled by aviation.
I once had the opportunity to interview an Air Force veteran who had been on the maintenance crew, and she made clear there might have been a pilot in the cockpit, but that was her bird, and that's how her team felt. And did you really have that kind of relationship with your maintenance crews that they could feel like they were a part of everything you were doing mission wise as well?
Yes, you appreciated their hard work and their pride that they took in their airplane. And so, yes, it was their baby, and you were just borrowing it for the day. So, you were expected to bring it back and treat it nicely. So that was, they cared for it, and it made our lives easier because they took so much pride in their work.
So one of the descriptions I read for your book is the chicken soup for the skies. Are there lessons in here that people who are not pilots or not veterans and are in business can really pick up as well?
Yes. Let's see. Mainly just to keep pursuing your dreams. And the book really is kind of like the movie Rudy, where you're rooting for the common man. My career would be a case of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I wanted to be a pilot, but went in as a navigator. I wanted to fly fighters, but I got a B-52 for navigating and then a cargo aircraft for flying. And so, like many people, we all have to overcome setbacks. And so I just kept moving forward. And one of the lessons you learn in the Air Force is to do the best at the jobs you're given, and the good things will happen to you. And so that's what I just kept doing, was trying to excel at whatever job I was given and keep pressing forward.
So your career and your book intersects with some pretty extraordinary world events. You've mentioned 2 already, Mogadishu and Desert Storm. But could you give us some examples of such an event and how it really may have influenced your personal journey?
I think the most earth-shattering would have been I was airborne on 9/11. I was in Florida giving a check ride, so everybody remembers where they were that day. And in the morning hours, when the first plane went down, we were still conducting our landings down at Fort Myers, and the tower said that a plane went down in New York City. And a little while later, we had changed locations up to Lakeland, Florida, and that's when the emergency broadcast came out for all aircraft to land immediately. So we landed back in MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, and we were parked very close to the Air Force 757 that was the backup plane for President Bush that day, and he was down in Sarasota. So just remember, I walked into the squadron. Everybody was looking at the television as the smoke was rising over New York City. And we just knew that day that our lives were changed immensely. And we were in charge of flying the 4-star generals. So we knew that it was showtime. We were going to be moving generals around the world for the next few years. And our squadron was the squadron tasked with flying General Tommy Franks, the CENTCOM commander.
I interviewed a fella who was a senior in college in ROTC on 9/11, and that night the unit commander said, "Boys, you're going to war," and that changed his life, obviously. And just like you mentioned, it changed everyone's life. Did it give you a new sense of mission, a new sense of urgency, a new sense of focus?
Most definitely. Our squadron had to go on 24-hour shifts, so we had to split the squadron in half. We knew we were transporting General Franks to his meetings with President Bush and Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld. We took them up there when they briefed the offensive plan for Iraq and Afghanistan. I had many missions out to Bagram, Afghanistan, and Kyrgyzstan as they started to ramp up the U.S. forces over in that region. So it was a huge team squadron effort to move the generals around safely.
So I'm always fascinated to talk to other authors about your writing style. So, for instance, are you a morning person? Are you an afternoon person? Are you very structured in your approach? Do you write when the spirit moves you? Do you have a muse that you can tap into? I just interviewed a woman this morning who said, I walk and I that's what gets me juiced up and I come home after my walk and I can crank out a few pages. So tell me about David's writing style.
I am definitely a morning person, and I've tended to get up even earlier and earlier these days. I used to rise between 6 and 6:30, and now I'm back to 5 a.m. But I do enjoy the quiet time to write before the sun comes up. Throughout the day, when thoughts strike me, I'll text a message to myself, like a memory and something that might need to be changed, or an improved way of saying a paragraph that I had written earlier. So I would like to give credit to, so my stepmother was a University of Houston college English professor. And I also had two very good English professors at the University of Texas. And I always enjoyed creative writing. So I've always been writing since I was a child. I wrote stories. I had pen pals to write letters to. So the fact of writing was not new to me.
So I live near Kerrville, Texas, and actually a airplane community. We have our own airstrip where I live, and I've met several of the pilots and had coffee with them. And there's a vibrant uh, aviation community, one in Fredericksburg.
Oh, yes.
The Tybee High School has an aviation program. The Shriner College or University has an aviation program. Could you say a few words about the uh, the boy who had the journey you had, who becomes excited and can have the opportunity or would look for an opportunity to find out more about piloting and flying, and you really your role to help foster our next generation of pilots?
And that really was one of the motivations of writing the book, was to entice young people to take up an aviation career. The confidence that I gained through aviation was transformational for me. The whole reason for the background, the title of Aviation Therapy, I wanted to compare to equine therapy. If I could just give that background quickly. My sister had horses as a teenager, and that helped her come out of her shell. And as I was writing my story, I realized that I came out of my shell because of lessons learned through aviation. So I wanted to share that with others and let them realize that being an aviator is a great career. Mother Nature changes your day every day, so it doesn't matter if you land on the same runway. Every day is different, and so we do need pilots throughout our country, and I just hope that others will take up that task.
Um, as you know, we had a catastrophic flood on July 4th, and it's in Kerrville, and we've had a lot of people think about and talk about Mother Nature since that time. And what risks can you plan for? What risks can you manage? And what are some risks that, frankly, you can't manage? Could you really talk about the relationship of a pilot to Mother Nature, or if you want to call it weather, that's good. And how do you respect it, manage the risk, or deal with it in other ways?
Well, you definitely plan for the worst and hope for the best. And so we pre-flight plan. We look at the weather where we're going, but you also have to respect Mother Nature. And so during a intense approach, and I do have a chapter about flying General Franks into DC in the middle of a blizzard. And so it resulted in 2 go-arounds before our 3rd successful landing. And so you're intently focused on the runway and the weather conditions, whether it's a limited visibility or gusty winds. And so that intense concentration is what makes aviation so rewarding. But you don't want to think you can overcome Mother Nature, because she is going to win the battle. So you press up to the safe limit and don't exceed that.
So this question may be a little bit along the lines of your favorite part of the book, but what would you say, if you can identify in your aviation journey, has been your proudest moment?
I was able to finish out my career as the commander of a flying squadron, and it was a squadron that we helped build from the ground up. And so I consider that the pinnacle of my career, to start with a team of all crew members. It was pilots, flight engineers, communication people, and flight attendants. And we were the nucleus to bring other crew members into the squadron. We were 3 jets, 65 people in the squadron. And like I said earlier, this was the squadron that went on to transport the 4-star generals around the world. But we were able to mold that squadron and give it its identity. I came up with the slogan of saying it was 5-star service for the 4 stars, and that's what we aspired to, was perfection. And when I said earlier about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the self-actualization, to be surrounded by so many people whose focus was the perfect execution of a flight, it just was extremely rewarding, and that was the proudest moment.
So when you give me the title of the podcast in your interview, you win an extra special gold star. So 5-star ride for the 4 stars. That was great. Well done.
Thank you.
What lessons would you say from aviation continue to help you, guide you, or lead you in your life today, David?
Let me think. Okay. Let's see. Am I able to look down and take some notes? I think it goes back to not pushing the limits of weather to.
No worries, I can edit.
Yeah, I had some thoughts. Can I take a look at notes real quick?
Sure.
Okay. Because I felt like some of these we had already covered. Okay, yeah, I do want to bring up my first flight instructor. Okay.
Well, let me just re-tee it up for you.
Please.
David, what lessons from aviation continue to resonate with you and help you guide your life today?
One of the mantras still was plan for the worst, but hope for the best. You want to be prepared for whatever situation you go into. But the other one is fight for centerline. And what that's what my first flight instructor when I was a teenager used to tell me. And he mainly would say, strive for perfection. And so don't settle for less. Don't land 2 feet off centerline, and just keep pushing forward to make sure you're being the best pilot you can be. But you want that to carry over to all facets of your life. Do whatever you undertake, do the best at the job you're given.
As I said, I'm a little bit older than you, so I think about this next topic a fair amount, which is the next generation. In my world, it may be a podcaster, it may be some of the other work I do, but for your world, I'm going to leave it to focus it on aviation. So what would you say to the 16-year-old or the even 12-year-old who may be interested and wants to step into a life similar to what you have been able to create so far?
My biggest word of advice is to go for it. When I'm flying with Southwest Airlines, as I see youngsters of any age, 10, 12, 14 years old, I invite them to come up into the cockpit, boys and girls, sit in the captain's seat, take their photo. I'm hoping to plant that seed to let everybody know, no matter their race or ethnicity, that they can do this job. And so I would hope that they would take on the thrill of that first flying lesson to realize that they can do this. And it's an exciting, rewarding career.
I had an astronomy podcast when we had the eclipse here in Kerrville, and I interviewed a lot of astronomers and astrophysics PhDs, and I always asked them, what was it that so inspired you? How old were you? How did you look up at the stars one night and just have awe? When you do that, when you bring someone into the cockpit, do you still from time to time see that sparkle in someone's eye, or that sense of awe, or that spark in a little boy or a little girl?
Definitely, yes. Some are fearful, some don't want to touch anything, and I would like for them to overcome that fear and let them know that you'll learn what to do right. I told the kids it's a building block approach. Right now, at first, when they see it, they're overwhelmed with the number of buttons and dials. And I said, you're going to learn a little bit at a time. You're going to put it all together. And by the end of the lessons, you'll have the big picture. So that's part of it. Yes.
David, I'd like to maybe end with a few questions about Stoney Creek Publishing and how was it for you working with Stoney Creek? What was that process like?
Very rewarding. That actually was a different or a new part of the Perseverance story. I did have a self-published memoir from 3 years ago that my favorite aviation magazine would not review or promote because it was self-published. So I found a new editor in Chicago, and she helped me make this a more well-rounded book. And then she and I both shopped it around, and I knew through my research that Stony Creek Publishing they focus on memoirs and nonfiction under the umbrella of Texas A&M Press. Now that I've worked with them, and Laura and Steffi loved the book and was ready to publish it, their publicist Leslie is really high energy and helping to promote the book. And so their editor John Jarvis did a wonderful job of going through the book one final time with to get everything right, to get everything where it needs to be.
Well, David, could you tell us when the book will be released? You've already mentioned Texas A&M University Press, but I assume it'll be available through that distribution site as well as directly on the Stoney Creek site. But kind of give us a wrap up of where listeners could go, and maybe if they wanted to connect with you, how they could do that.
It is on Amazon. It'll be in all the formats of paperback, ebook, and also I've recorded it. So there is an audible version of it as well. It'll come out on October 21st. And then we have some book release events planned for Houston and San Antonio in early to mid-November. And I have a website, pilotdaviddale.com. And I'm also on Facebook, David S. Dale on Facebook and Instagram as well. I have a Gmail account if anybody has any questions to ask. It's davidsdale310@gmail.com.
Well, David, I wanted to thank you for taking the time to visit with me, and I hope we can continue this conversation.
Thank you very much, Tom.